Welcome here into Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus. I'm Sports Director John Scott, joined this week by Jonathan Acosta, our Vic Carucci, once again a Hall of Famer in another capacity here. So he is being honored this weekend in Chicago. But the two of us will hold down the fort and dive into the Bills matchup against the Panthers. Also going to switch things up again. We need to talk to Sabres. Didn't have them on the Monday show, so Paul Hamilton in the house is they're winning some hockey games here, and they have some decisions to make in net. But first, let's start with the state of injuries here. A few days back from the bye week here, and we will get a look at things. Not really a surprise to see the guys not participating when it comes to Daquan Jones and Josh Palmer. They are week to week. Taylor Rapp from the guys that aren't on the field. He's the one that came into the bye week and really was something we weren't expecting.
Right. When we first heard from Sean McDermott coming out of the bye, we sort of figured, sort of reading the tea leaves, that this team would be without Josh Palmer and Daquan Jones, and especially when you consider how things played out in that Monday night loss in Atlanta. You see Palmer go down in that game. You see Daquan Jones suffer that injury pregame. Certainly not a good sign. Taylor Rapp, interesting, because who does that then maybe put into a position to potentially start in this game against the Carolina Panthers? Jordan Poyer, right? How things come full circle. A guy who's obviously very familiar with this defense, a guy who's been healthy, sort of. We heard from him when he signed with this team that he was coming here sort of in that mentorship role a la Micah Hyde from last year, except he was ready to play. And he said his intention was to play this year, and certainly it looks like that opportunity might be popping up for him. I think also encouraging to see, for example, a guy like Dalton Kincaid getting on the practice field and practicing these past 2 days. Certainly a guy that we saw how much this team missed him in that loss to Atlanta, and a guy that I know Josh Allen would love to have back against Carolina.
Yeah, the knee injury for Rapp is something that Sean McDermott saying earlier in the week he's been dealing with dating back to training camp. So that's not something that really is encouraging there. With the limited guys, you see a handful of them, both starting linebackers there that we've seen on the field in a limited capacity. And then Curtis Samuel. Now let's switch gears to Maxwell Hairston, because he is someone whose 21-day practice window was opened on Monday, as he's been out with a knee injury suffered, a week or so into training camp here. You'll see the video here. Jonathan, you and I have been out at practice the past 2 days looking at him. He looks pretty good.
I think the video shows exactly what we've been seeing is he's moving fluidly. I don't think that you see that knee sort of noticeably bothering him. Obviously, we're not inside his head, so we don't know exactly what's going on. But from what we can observe, he looks like a guy who's maybe even closer to getting back onto the field maybe than you would have expected for a guy who hasn't necessarily been activated off IR. His practice window is what's been opened up. But maybe, I think we've talked about this before, about what's the timeline for Hairston. Are they going to use up 2 weeks? Are they going to use up 3 weeks? My contention is that with how he's been looking and the traits that he has, that he could bring to this defense that noticeably is lacking some juice, that could use some spark after these past 2 losses. You play a Kansas City Chiefs offense in 2 weeks that has that speed and spades and Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. A defense like the Bills would love to have Maxwell Hairston for the reason that they drafted him, because of his athleticism. So I think I would be surprised, like many people, if he ends up playing this week against Carolina. But I think that game against the Chiefs in now a week and a half is certainly a reasonable target date.
It is. It's also wild to think your NFL debut could come against Patrick Mahomes in a Kansas City offense that is finding its footing with Rashee Rice back in the mix as well. I'm changing my tune. I thought they'd really slow play it the full 3 weeks and then activate him after 21 days. I think maybe in your range, if it's not Kansas City, the following week against the Miami Dolphins. Let's switch gears to the Carolina Panthers. First things first here, and we'll dive into them kind of going position by position. We'll start on offense because they have questions at quarterback. Bryce Young leaving their previous game with an ankle injury. Andy Dalton sliding in relief for them. Young not practicing so far this week. Dalton appears to be the one that is going to be starting here. How do you feel this changes the complexion of the way Carolina can operate offensively?
I feel like, and we're going to get more to this later on, but I feel like it doesn't change it all that much in the sense that their bread and butter, what their offense is based upon, it's not necessarily what they do through the air. It's based upon what they do on the ground, right? With the 2 running backs of Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. I think Andy Dalton, obviously a guy with a lot of experience, has been here, done that before. We saw him sort of give this Carolina offense a lift when he came in for Bryce Young last year, when Bryce Young was benched, and we wondered what Bryce Young's future was in Carolina. I think Andy Dalton, it was either the first or second game in there for him, and he threw for over 300 yards. After that, the interceptions started to pile up, and then they put Young back in there. But I see a guy, Dalton, who's done it at other stops, but also in Carolina. He has some weapons he can throw to in the passing game, and most importantly, I think a guy who can make sure that there's a baseline level of efficiency for this offense.
Bryce Young has been better this year than we've seen in the past. He is not necessarily still yet to live up to that #1 overall pick that he was just a few years ago. But as you indicated, this is a run-first team. The Carolina Panthers run the ball second most in all of football at 29.7 attempts per game. 30 times a game they are running the football here. It started with Chuba Hubbard as the guy, had a great year, got a new contract last year. He was out for 2 games. Rico Dowdle, who previously was with the Dallas Cowboys, comes in and absolutely pops off. Last week, the first time the two were both healthy and active together. But you talk about a 1-2 punch here. Whoever it is, if it's a 50-50 split, whatever, this is going to be the latest test for a Bills run defense that has struggled a lot this year.
Right. It's coming out of the bye. The biggest question on defense is, what is this run defense going to look like moving forward, especially getting the suspended guys back in Hoyt and Ogunjobi? A great first test right off the bat, right? And Chuba Hubbard was the guy for this Carolina backfield, but injuries sometimes change things, and Rico Dowdle has popped off. 469 rush yards just in the last 3 weeks, over 200 yards of scrimmage the 2 weeks that Chuba Hubbard was out. He was putting up video game numbers, carrying fantasy football teams the 2 weeks that he was riding solo. And then Hubbard comes back last week, and it was a 50-50 split in terms of they were alternating possessions. Even then, Rico Dowdle was the more efficient guy. So I think Dowdle right now, the guy showing that he has a little bit more juice right now in this Carolina backfield. And you know coaches love to ride the hot hand. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Dowdle getting the majority of the carries against the Bills defense.
Yeah, Dowdle 5.6 yards per carry to Hubbard's 3.7. So if you're going to go strictly with the, hey, who is more efficient as a runner, you would go Dowdle's way. Both of them, though, good as pass catchers. And we've seen whether that be Bijan Robinson or Devon Achane or down the list, multi-threat types of guys in that backfield could cause issues for the Bills defense as well. From a pass-catching standpoint, there's really one guy that the Bills are going to really have to focus on, and that's Teteroa McMillan, the 8th overall pick this past year out of Arizona. And he already, statistically, maybe not up in the upper echelon with the true #1s in the league, but I think from the eye test and what you've seen, and even those numbers, nothing to scoff at.
Maybe a guy that not as many people knew about coming out of college just because he did play out west at Arizona. But this guy is the kind of wide receiver that you just love to get your hands on in the top 10. Tall, physical, good route runner, great hands. And you said it, he is the passing game right now for Carolina. He leads the team with 413 receiving yards. The next closest guy is Xavier Legette with 142. Xavier Legette, one of the guys that was on the board when the Bills traded back and ended up drafting Keon Coleman. In terms of that size, so between McMillan and Legette, they have 2 receivers that are 6'3" and 6'5". So when Andy Dalton does go back to throw, you know, it's not dependent upon these guys excelling in terms of getting separation or breakaway speed or whatever. He has big body targets that he can sort of put the ball up there and let them go attack it against Tre'Davious White and Christian Benford, that their strengths in terms of playing the ball and stuff like that, they're not the biggest cornerbacks right there. So potential mismatch just in terms of size for the Carolina wide receivers.
Yeah, 6'5", 212 is nothing that's going to be an easy task. As you see, there are 8 targets in 5 straight games. So as the rookie year is slowly progressing, he's getting more involved, he's getting more comfortable and being more prominent in their offense. The one difference that really sticks out to me with it's Bryce Young versus Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's not going anywhere. So if some of these plays off of script that maybe McMillan could get down the field and beat you deep, that maybe Bryce Young would be able to do, not going to be a factor here. Tommy Tremble, a tight end that they have, someone that also just to keep an eye on in that part of the passing game. Let's slide over to the defense, because the Bills' offense, surprisingly, has been maybe more so of the talking point of the struggles over losing their last 2 games here. And this Panthers defense, 7th overall and top 10 in a lot of other categories here. This is not going to be an easy afternoon that maybe when you saw the schedule come out in May, you thought it would be, led by guys like Derek Brown, who's pass rushing from the interior, and J.C. Horn, who had a couple interceptions, I believe was NFC Defensive Player of the Week coming into this one after a few picks of the Jets last week. They got it on different levels here, and the Bills, regardless of whether they're trying to establish the run again or get Josh Allen and everybody eats rolling again, it's not going to be easy.
Right, a Panthers defense that is top 10, as you see right there, both against the run and the pass. And you talk about common opponents, right? We saw how the Bills struggled against that Atlanta offense with Drake London and Bijan Robinson. The Panthers beat the Falcons 30-0, right? And things in the NFL aren't always apples to apples, right? But that's just, that's a point that we can point to and say, hey, this Panthers defense is legit. Derek Brown, fantastic game against the Jets. 2 sacks, 7 tackles, 3 quarterback hits. Just a dominant guy, 6'5", 320 pounds on that D-line. And then apart from Horn and Brown, you have pieces like Mike Jackson with 7 passes defended at that other cornerback position. And at safety, Trayvon Moehrig, 6 tackles for loss, most of any defensive back in the NFL. So certainly this is a Panthers team that is not just making plays in the passing game when the ball gets thrown downfield, but is also getting after the running backs and the quarterback as well.
Briefly, the Bills often talk about, and they've said it this week, hey, it's not like they don't game plan for the opponent, but they often try to focus just on themselves. For an offensive unit that has struggled, what do you think, taking the Panthers maybe out of the equation, what do the Bills need to do to get back to being successful?
Condensing what everybody eats is to getting the ball into the hands of their playmakers. I think we've talked a lot about the James Cook usage, right? He needs to be getting the ball more, not just running the ball, but getting passes, getting targets in the pass game. Only 1 target in the 2 losses for James Cook. And then if you get Dalton Kincaid back, I think he's been the guy when the pass game is at its most efficient level. It's been him getting the ball, maybe with some sprinkles of Khalil Shakir. And then Keon Coleman just making 1 or 2 plays downfield to really change the dynamic for this offense.
And just don't make mistakes. Penalties and turnovers. Those are the things that have kind of been a bugaboo in these last 2 losses. Frankly, they had a lot of penalties before that, but the turnovers have now crept in to add to injury here. Now, time to switch gears, and we're going to turn our attention to the Sabres. Winning ways are back, and so too, that 3-man goalie situation. Paul Hamilton in the house to dive into it next here on Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus. Welcome back to Sports Talk Live Plus, and hey, a line change. Paul Hamilton now in the chairs. We're going to switch gears over to the Sabres, and Paul, heck, first 3 games it looked like, oh my God, here we are again. They're 0-3. They scored just 2 goals. And then I don't know if it's because Tage Thompson said, I'm tired of talking about the past. Why is everybody being so negative or whatever? But these past 4 games, they've been a legitimately different hockey team, winning 3 of them.
They decided they wanted to play hockey the way Lindy Ruff wants them to play hockey. Simple as that, with speed. That's the one thing he really stressed with them. We need you to have speed. They started playing with speed. They started having people go to the net. And when they see Doan going to the net, then they see Benson going to the net. And now maybe one guy from each line decides, okay, maybe I should go to the net. And then all of a sudden some of the other forwards go, well, it's working for them. They're scoring goals. Maybe I should go there too and I'll score some goals. Then you've got most of your forwards going to the net. Even in that first period in Montreal where they didn't play all that well, when they did get into the offensive zone, they still had people around the net. They just weren't in all that often in the first period. So that didn't change for them. That's, I think, the biggest part. Playing with speed, still playing good defensively. For the most part, I don't like their coverages in front of the net. That's the big thing I don't like. But overall, defensive effort, I think, is much improved. But playing with speed, winning battles, and getting to the battle in front of the net. Both sides. I'm watching Matthias Samuelsson knock people down in front of the Buffalo net. You know, and that's something new. I mean, he had a great game the other night. It was the most physical I had ever seen him play in a game. Twice he just creamed some guy in front of the net standing there, put him down. He's not going to score if he's on the seat of his pants.
That's true.
And that's what coaches have always said, even when I was 7 years old. That guy's not going to score if you put him on the seat of his pants, and he did that.
And I guess we'll say it's encouraging. Tage Thompson isn't playing like Tage Thompson. Alex Tuch is not playing like Alex Tuch. Even Rasmus Dahlin not playing like Rasmus Dahlin. But now you're getting guys like Josh Doan and Zach Benson who are kind of elevating things. From the goaltending situation, I swear, Paul, I had to start with something else because every time we talk, we're talking goalies. But this team just keeps making us do it. And let's go to last night against Detroit. The NHL debut for Colton Ellis. It was really good.
I don't think some people in the Sabres organization were that surprised because when they got him, that's what Lindy Ruff said. It's like, he's been on our radar for a while. We couldn't pass up getting him. So that's what they did. They went out and got him, and Lindy Ruff said right away, he's going to play. He's going to get his first NHL game. It was just a matter of when was that going to happen. So I don't think they were all that surprised that he came in and played pretty well. He's already gone through his development. Development's over. St. Louis did that for you. Now it's, can he play in the NHL at 25 years old? And that's what the Sabres have to discover now. After one game, yes, he can play in the NHL. But it's only been one game.
It's only been one game, but now there are more complications because Alex Lyon, a .924 save percentage through 6 games. I think we can agree he's been good. And you forecasted this, Paul. I'll give you your props because you said, hey, Alex Lyon is going to have an opportunity to grab the #1 job. I think that he should remain having that spot. But Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, he went down last night, had 21 or 22 of he only missed 2 shots, he allowed 2 goals in Rochester, and is recalled to the Sabres today. So once again, here we are with this team with 3 goalies. How in the world do you think that this is going to work out?
I will be shocked if they waive Ellis, because I would guarantee you St. Louis would take him back. They want him as their #3 goalie. If they take him back, he's theirs. Then that's it. Buffalo can't take it. They can send him to the minors. So I don't see that happening with what Buffalo said when they acquired him. So I see, all right, a couple of things could be happening here. 3 goaltenders, or Luukkonen will go back to Rochester. He might be here for practice, or will go back to Rochester. Or they were satisfied with what they saw in that one game, and he'll be in goal in Toronto on Saturday. I mean, it could be any one of those scenarios that they're doing there. But I fully believe that when Luukkonen's done with the rehab, whether he is done now or he's going to play another game down there, they will go with 3 goaltenders. And then, after, if it were me, I'm going to find out if Ellis can play. And then after a month or whatever it is, if he can play and he's for real, now I'm either going to waive Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He's going to be the guy on waivers. Quite honestly, I don't think anybody would take him because of his injuries, because of the consistency. And I don't think his contract is high for goaltenders, but it's high for him. And so I think with those, I don't think anybody would claim him, or I would try to trade him first. And if I couldn't,
What could they get for him?
I don't think that would work. That's why I'm talking about waiving, because I would try, but I'm not sure that would work. The only way
would you
that
take
would
anything,
work,
Paul? Would you take like a fifth-round pick or whatever. I mean, is there anything?
Yeah, I mean, because the only way I think somebody would trade for him is if they have 3 goaltenders hurt and they got to have a goalie. And then I could see somebody trading for him. But there is potential still maybe there if he ever gets back to where he was 2 years ago. And he's never had the opportunity this year to do that yet. Maybe he could do that. But I would still, if you feel that much and if you feel that good about Ellis, who, if you look at his minor league numbers, are better than Luukkonen's when Luukkonen was doing it. If you went out and got him and you feel that strongly about him, I think you got to give him a chance. And if he takes advantage of that chance, then I think, all right, the time you still have Levi down there. The time has come then to maybe waive him or trade him, whichever may work for you.
It's content forever, Paul. I promise next time we talk, I'm going to try not to talk about goalies unless they put Luukkonen out there instead of Lyon, instead of Ellis, more times than not, and he ascends into the number 1, and then they start losing games. It's a really interesting situation that the Ellis going on waivers, they couldn't have forecasted, but the UPL deal is, I think, really where this has put them in a corner in a bit. But you say, heck, if they can get out of it with waivers, we'll see. We'll see, Paul.
Injuries have hurt him. Double hip surgery, 2 injuries already this year, and they've hurt him throughout his career.
Okay, we will see. All right, Paul Hamilton here. We'll try to get him back on the regular show on Monday nights to talk Sabres next week. We're going to finish up the show bringing Jonathan back and once again look at the AFC East and the AFC as a whole. You're watching Sports Talk Live Plus here on WGRZ Plus. Welcome back to Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus here. Jonathan Acosta back in the chairs. We're shifting back to football. I'm going to take a little wider view of the AFC East. All 4 teams in the division playing Sunday at 1 o'clock. Praise be. Look at that. Dolphins on the road to face the Falcons, who the Bills certainly familiar with. Jets at the Bengals. Browns traveling to face Drake May and the Patriots. Let's start with the Dolphins, who were awful against the Browns last week. And we know what the Falcons are. They're just kind of bleeding out now, it seems.
I think the intrigue with the Dolphins has gone from, hey, are they going to get this season turned around and sort of get back into any sort of race, to, if they continue down this trajectory, when does the Mike McDaniel experiment end? Do guys get placed maybe in, or do they start to hear their name in trade rumors like a Jalen Waddle or a Jalen Phillips, right? I think that's the way that this Dolphins season is trending, unfortunately, for the people down in Miami. But we watched that game against Cleveland. They just had no life. Tua Tagovailoa looked like potentially like he's not the long-term answer at quarterback for Miami, just an organization trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think Tua and McDaniel, their time with the Dolphins, they're not going to get rid of Tua because of the contract, but his time as their starter, at least this season, I think the clock is ticking. Jets are winless. They continue to look absolutely terrible. Questions at quarterback between Justin Fields getting benched, Tyrod Taylor dealing with an injury. The Bengals with Joe Flacco looked a heck of a lot better there. So I think anything but the Jets going to 0-8 would be a surprise. And the Browns and the Patriots, so much love for New England right now. Drake May's playing this. But the Browns, they have proven time and again, even in defeats, that defensively they can really give some offenses some trouble.
And this is one of the games where if you're a good team like the Patriots, they're 5-2. If you're a good team, this is a game that you should win, right? And Patriots teams in the past, not so great, have lost to teams in this exact sort of situation. A team with a good defense comes into Gillette Stadium and knocks them down. I'm interested to see, can Drake May continue his level of play now against teams that haven't been that good? Can he do it against the Browns defense that is really good in Foxborough?
Yeah, they can produce some pressure. They got some guys, Tyson Campbell, the new defensive back over there. So they have some weapons that have, like with the Green Bay Packers, for instance, given fits to some good offenses. Let's zoom out a little farther to the AFC standings as a whole. You see the Bills' top wild card spot with New England in the top spot here. I want your thoughts on the Indianapolis Colts because they are certainly the surprise of the NFL.
I think it's complementary football, right? They're getting it done on defense. On offense, you have a rejuvenated Daniel Jones, Indiana Jones, somehow in the MVP conversation, right? Jonathan Taylor playing like potentially one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in all of the NFL right now. They have pieces at wide receiver, a great rookie tight end in Tyler Warren, just an overall good team. I think the Colts roster has been a roster that's had some talent.